Hi, everyone. So I wanted an opportunity to kind of just have a real talk. I had put out there if anybody had any questions, and I got a few responses. So I kind of wanted to address some of those specific questions. So the first question was about dementia versus Alzheimer's. So the difference is that dementia is the umbrella in which Alzheimer's falls under. Alzheimer's disease is one of 54 that are under the dementia umbrella. There are other diseases that are neurodegenerative, such as Lewy body disease, Parkinson's. Those are just a few other ones that a lot of people, I think, are more aware of than other things. So Tony has been diagnosed with MCI, which is mild cognitive impairment, which is usually the precursor to Alzheimer's, and Lewy bodies and Parkinson's. It usually starts there if it has an early diagnosis. He was also diagnosed as early onset dementia. So the difference between an early onset dementia versus just a dementia diagnosis is based on your age. So anybody 65 years old and younger is considered young onset, or younger onset is the correct term. It used to also be early onset. So the vernacular of it all is really secondary to just understanding the age difference. So based on the fact that Tony was diagnosed at the age of 47 technically, and started showing signs based on the information and the timeline that we currently have at the age of 45. So he is on the younger end, and it is not typical, and it is considered rare. However, and I say a big however, they are finding as they do more research, as they get a larger pool of more vast people of different cultures and not just Caucasian males, they're realizing that there is actually a higher percentage than they had initially thought. And they are working really hard to try and get better case studies to show population diversity that is more accurate. So we are seeing a higher increase, they believe, based on getting more current information. So the other aspect that I was asked about was the difference also of staging. So there is early stage, which Tony is still considered early stage in this disease, and it means that it's the beginning stages. So they're still seeing a decline. However, there aren't huge modifications in life quality or in necessary applications. For instance, some of the later stage things are forgetting who oneself is, completely forgetting who other people around you are that you should recall, such as your children, your spouse, parents, people that are in your close circle. That's just one minor example of some of the later stage issues, but it has to do with the brain and how the disease has affected the brain. And sometimes we have to realize what's going on based on their symptoms, not necessarily a scan. That is the most difficult thing about this disease, is that there's not one test that can verify or validate what specifically the disease is. So under those 54 diseases, oftentimes it's very difficult for a neurologist or a doctor, a general practitioner, sometimes will do their best to try and kind of figure out what type of dementia a person has. We still have not gotten a specific diagnosis as to what Tony's type of diagnosis is under the dementia umbrella. Sometimes people will say, well, Alzheimer's is the same as dementia. It's not. It's kind of like saying the thumb is the same as the hand. It's different. So under that same thought process, Alzheimer's is probably the most well known, and that's why the Alzheimer's Association does kind of go in that direction because it is the highest percentage of people who have dementia are under the Alzheimer's pie in the whole pie chart of what falls under Alzheimer's. I hope that clarifies that a little bit. And if you have more questions, I'd be happy to help you find more accurate information about what that pie looks like and the percentages of the different types of diseases. So, so that is kind of like the overall information that I had specific questions about. I also wanted to just kind of touch a little bit about some of the things that we see as far as Tony's specific symptoms. One of the hardest parts of it is the loss of skill set. So Tony, as many of you know, he had a variety of careers in his lifetime, all of which had something to do with finance. He had multi-million-dollar budgets that he balanced for different businesses and did fine understanding, processing that all of his adult years. Unfortunately, when this disease attacked his brain, he now has approximately a first grade level of understanding of number sense. And I say that in the sense of what he can comprehend is that he can understand what numbers are. He does fine adding up to about the hundreds. And then after that, it gets very muddy for him. Another issue that Tony has is that he has a loss of memory. So some of the issues that he has as far as his memory, he oftentimes gets confused about what day it is. He gets confused about what month it is. He gets confused about what season it is. That makes things a little bit difficult for him in the sense of it causes anxiety about where he is at in his week and what does that mean? Where is he supposed to be? What is he supposed to be doing? I have created a board, and it's something that I did for a lot of my students who had a hard time understanding what the expectation was for the day. So I have a whiteboard that I create once a week that has all of his where we're supposed to go, what appointments we have, what doctor's visits, if he has his group, what the times are and where we're at. And that helps him kind of feel like, okay, I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing and this is where I need to be. Some of the things that he has a hard time recalling more recently is kind of what he's supposed to do during the day. Sometimes he will forget. For instance, he'll forget about feeding the dogs, or he'll forget if he ate or if he didn't eat. Usually I do all of his meals or remind him to eat, and I keep track of it for him. He will forget where he needs to take a vitamin, a daily vitamin twice a day. Sometimes he will forget. I tend to remember for him. We're very thankful for technology. We set a lot of alarms to remind him to do certain things. Some of the other more complex issues that he has is he has an issue with his filter. So oftentimes I equate it to what you would usually see with a child, right? They just kind of say whatever comes out of their mouth. They don't really think about how that's going to make the other person feel. It just kind of comes out. And it's not intended to hurt anybody's feelings. It just kind of flies out. So he has a hard time with that sometimes. And sometimes he will ask me, should I say this or should I not say that? Is that rude? Is that not rude? He has a hard time understanding and filtering out responses sometimes to things in a communication of going back and forth and having conversations. Sometimes he has a hard time with that. He has a hard time recalling time. So for instance, if I said, okay, well, we just had pot roast the other night, he'll look at me and go, we had pot roast. I thought that was last month. No, that was 3 days ago. Or he'll have a hard time recalling when a holiday is coming up. He also has a hard time recalling people sometimes, people that weren't necessarily super close in our sphere of influence, so to speak. Potentially maybe people that he worked with in relay, that he might have seen them every year, but only once a year. And so sometimes that's a little bit more muddy. He's better at recalling and saying, that face looks familiar, but I can't remember the name and I don't know how I know them. That is something that he struggles with, and I do my best to try and recall for him if I see somebody and he'll say, I think I knew that person, but I don't remember their name, or I don't remember the relationship. It brings a lot of anxiety for him. So I do my best to kind of manage that as best I can to help him. Driving is not something that I'm super comfortable with him doing all the time. He has his good days and his bad days. The good days, he recalls things. He is more clear. He feels good. On his bad days, he gets confused easily. He oftentimes will run into things. His coordination will lack. He will forget more often, and he will not necessarily recall a conversation that we just had about, he'll remember that we talked about something, but he won't remember specifics. So it's really a daily circumstance as to if I get the clear Tony or if I get the Tony that is a little bit more confused. So those are a few of the daily things that kind of happen. He has also, we've gone through this whole thing with Social Security for quite a while now, and he has finally been labeled a disabled American, and he technically is retired, and the likelihood of him taking on a job is very minuscule unless the current medication that hopefully he will get on in the next 6 months helps with some of the clarity and some of the more consistency of his skill set. I don't foresee that happening. So those are a few of the things that we are contending with. I have opted to take some time off so that we can have more time during this early stage to help him, and to have more time so that we can go and do some of these traveling for the Alzheimer's Association and the board. It is definitely, we're on a time crunch, so to speak. We don't know for how long he will be like this. There is a possibility, and there's other people that have MCI in our early stage dementia who can be like this for a few years. And then there's other people that it goes through more quickly in their brain, and they aren't able to maintain that for very long. So we don't know. We don't know which of the cases that he will be. So far, he's been able to, his declines kind of happen where he declines and then he plateaus, and then he declines and then he plateaus. We just hit a decline and we're kind of plateauing right now. And we just can pray that his plateaus last longer, and that his early stage contained in that time continuum, that he can stay in this spot for a longer period of time. That's what our hope is with this new medication, but we'll find out more about that. So I just wanted to kind of be pretty direct and kind of say exactly what it kind of goes on a day-to-day basis. My hope is never to cover up or to make anybody think that we are ashamed or that we are trying to hide anything. We're not. That's one of the misnomers, or one of the things that has happened in a lot of families, my own included. I think that we all tried to protect my grandmas. Both of my grandmas, one had dementia, one had Alzheimer's. And it just comes from human nature. We want to try and protect those that we love, and we don't want people to look at them and feel bad for them, or to feel like they would be embarrassed. If they didn't have this disease, they would be embarrassed about their behavior or the things that they say. And we kind of have to get over that. We kind of have to just accept them where they're at and understand that it is a brain disease. It's kind of like being embarrassed because you're a diabetic. You need certain things and your body does certain things that you have no control over. Or should you be embarrassed about that? No. And we're trying to show a light in coming forward and kind of opening things up and sharing our story and sharing the symptoms and sharing what's going on. Our hope is to show that a person that has this disease can still be vital, and they can still have purpose, and they don't have to bury themselves before they're gone. I think that has been the hardest part, and was the hardest part for us, is that when we were in this process, it was all, you better get your stuff in order. You better get this in order because it's a death sentence. You know, you're just not going to be the same person, and you need to start saying your goodbyes and write everything down that you want. It was very negative. It was very hard. And our hope is to start educating the public and to really realize that you have to augment what you have as your day in and day out life. Yes, that will be forever changed. And you could talk to my kids and you know that our day-to-day life is absolutely 100% changed. However, we are doing the very best that we can, and we are supporting Tony in every way, shape, and form we possibly can. And I think if I were to tell anybody anything, is to not be afraid. You really have to do your homework. You have to really try and understand that this is a disease just like any other disease, and that there are fallouts from it, but there are also things that happen that are positive. And the song, you know, that you live like you're dying, this disease has made us really be very clear and be very concise in what we want in life. And we wouldn't have done that if he didn't have this disease. So it's really created us to re-look at our life. We've both lost weight. We both put our health first. We have both learned to live more in the moment. We really appreciate many things, much more probably than a lot of people our same age with the same life experiences, because we value and we are very covet our time together and with our family in a completely different way. And we don't take anything for granted. So it's really an attitude of gratitude, right? That we have tried very hard to live on a day-to-day basis. And anyways, if you ever have any questions, if you ever have any concerns, that's one of the things that I have chosen to do in my role in this support situation, is that I have been able to talk to many people, and it's completely confidential. I'm not a doctor. I just have educated myself a lot about a lot of the symptoms and a lot of things. And just because you're forgetting certain things, or just because you have certain symptoms, sometimes it has nothing to do with a brain degenerative disease. Sometimes it has to do with an oxygen level. Maybe it has a blood clot. You really need to go see your general practitioner and tell them your concerns and eliminate that from your worries. And sometimes if you tackle that early, it doesn't do the damage that it can do later about other things going on with your health. So anyways, my hope in coming forward is just, let's be honest, let's have some real conversations. And anyways, that's my hope, that's my prayer. And thank you all for your love and support. And we were going to be talking more about our Live for Today nonprofit and its mission in the months to come. We're planning a lot of things and hoping to do some big things to try and put money in research through our nonprofit to try not only to save Tony's life, but also hopefully our kids don't get this horrendous disease, but the likelihood is something in our genetic makeup could predisposition them to having this. So our hope is to help combat that. So anyways, that's kind of like a nutshell of everything, and be well and enjoy this holiday season. Much love.